what's going on there. I'm gonna show you some cool stuff for the upcoming new year. Some Capita products, some Union stuff has just trickled in, and then a couple other pieces too, interesting pieces. This is the new Capita Defenders of Awesome. This is the new DOA. This is the legendary board that has now won 8 straight Transworld Goodwood Awards. Every single year it wins, whether it's all mountain or in the park. It's just a hybrid camber rocker dominant board, camber dominant board that does everything really well. You know, so that's the new DOA, the Defenders of Awesome. That's kind of like the benchmark for all around freestyle boards nowadays. We've got, you know, the new Outsiders here, the new Capita Outsiders. This board's really awesome jump board, super lightweight, tons of pop. Obviously, you know, the big Capita jumpers ride that, you know, Marcus Olmstad and Miles Fallon and all those dudes. This board is is a new board, but it's kind of like they kind of just changed the name, but in a little bit of the shape. It's it used to be the old Spring Break ASIM Twin, but it is now in the Capita line, and this is the Capita Assimilator. So similar to DOA, it's got camber from here to here in the insert backs, and then flat for a little bit and rocker in this area. So it's super fun. It's got an asymmetrical side cut, so deeper heel side cut, and carves amazing, real quick edge to edge, tons of pop. Super fun though. That's the new Assimilator. You can see there we have a Spring Break slush slasher there. That's, you know, one of the funnest boards out there. You know, people have been going crazy over that board for the last 4 or 5 years now. Got a couple ladies boards over there that are interesting. This is the new Jessica Kimura board. It's called the Equalizer. They changed up the shape on it. It's still the same camber dominant center profile, a little bit more rocker in the nose, flat to a little bit of reverse camber in the tail. So it's definitely like, you know, an all mountain carving machine. Powder, it can handle the powder, it can handle jumps. It's definitely going to be a very fun board, and the graphics are pretty cool on this thing. So that's the Jess. And then this board is really good ladies all around, you know, board, whether you're a beginner or even an expert and anything in between. This is the Capita Paradise. It's got really nice, beautiful graphics for ladies. That's the new Ladies Paradise. And this is the legendary Black Snowboard of Death. This board, it's been around forever, pretty much in the Capita line, since the first year, and they're all mountain, hard charging, you know, do everything. You know, hit, you know, powder lines, steep lines, drop cliffs, you know, jump off of stuff, glades, trees, all that stuff. Take it out west, take it pretty much anywhere. Definitely a really, really fun, aggressive type of hard charging board. And this is like definitely one of my favorites. I still have a Black Snowboard of Death in my collection for myself personally. Those are kind of like, you know, there's some of the really interesting Capita boards that one is this company United Shapes. This is the Cadet from last year. This is the Explorer. This is actually the new Explorer that's coming out. So I've been riding this board for pretty much since January of this season. The boards are amazing. It's a really good story with this company. They are 2 guys, Pete and Steven. They're from the East Coast, Northeast, so they're local. They started this company about 5-6 years ago, and their you know, philosophy is just to make really good boards that are fun, that make sense, and you know, boards that can do everything, whether it's riding a groomer, making a turn here in the East Coast on a hard pack, or, you know, going out west and riding powder and looking, for really good snow. And then, like I said, anything else in between, like, you can charge it hard in the park. You can ride the trees because this board is amazing in the trees. It's very quick edge to edge, and it does it all. I've been taking these boards on my trips, United Shapes boards, for the last 2 seasons. Anywhere from Europe to South America to Whistler to Utah to Colorado to Tahoe, Jackson Hole, you name it. I've taken it there, and it's performed really well. It's never let me down. So this is the United Shapes. The 2 boards I highly recommend that you want to look at is the Cadet and then the Explorer series. Similar, but there's very slight differences between each one. This is a little bit more surfy of a feel on the Explorer series, and the Cadet's a little bit more aggressive, I guess you could call it. It can charge a little bit harder. One other board I'm going to pull out here that we have here at the shop that's coming in for the new season for 2019-2020 is the new Ride Super Pig. This is the new board from them. It kind of takes after the War Pig from the last 4 years, and then the Twin Pig from last year. So the Twin Pig from the new Twin Pig that was introduced last season was kind of like the twin, obviously parkish version of the War Pig. The War Pig was the original one. The Super Pig is basically the all mountain hard charger version of the War Pig. It's got camber, like true camber in it. It's got good rocker in the nose and a little bit in the tail. And it's definitely directional. Similar to all the Pig series from Ride. They're pretty wide, so you downsize on this board. So, you downsize 6 centimeters, give or take, 6 to 8 centimeters, depending on your weight on this board. This is the 148, and I ride 52 to 55, 56s, and this is the 148. Now, I rode this board a good amount in this spring. It's really fun. It definitely can handle a lot of different conditions, from powder to spring slush to icy hard pack and stuff. So definitely a fun board. I think this board is going to do well for someone who's looking for a board from the Ride Pig series that can handle everything. Like the Twin Pig is a great park board and it's fun, but it's definitely not a board that you want to take out west to go for like steep lines and POW and stuff like that. And the War Pig has done really well. It's got a really good following. I think this is kind of like the reincarnation in a more aggressive, faster, more stable manner of the Pig series from Ride. So this is definitely a very exciting board from Ride Snowboards. Other than that, we've got some new bindings that have floated in. A couple of these are the new, like Ladies Union. We have Legacy here. We have Ladies Trilogy. We've got some men's bindings here. We've got this is the new Force for men's from Union. STR. That's another color of the Force. That's new Scott Stevens binding with all the slapped on sticker collage job. The Contact Pro there, and then the Atlas there. I think there's an Ultra right here for the upcoming new year, and these are a couple of my personal bindings that I take on whenever I go on snowboarding trips. Hi, I'm doing an interview real quick on camera, so let me call you back. Cool. Hey, this is Jackson at Out of Bounds Snowboard Shop. I'm the owner, president, CEO, salesman, custodian, manager, do it all here. This is basically what you have to do as a small business owner. Out of Bounds, the snowboard shop, was opened in 1992, in the fall of 93 season, by Scott and Jen Donahue, and they also had another
silent partner, I forget his name, but they basically started the shop, and obviously, they were very very hardcore snowboarders. They were really into the sport, and they felt like New Jersey needed a core shop, that was snowboard specialty, snowboard specific. No skis, nothing against skis, or skiing, but having there's something to be said to offering a store that was snowboard focused and skateboard focused, as opposed to all the stuff that you see nowadays, or even back then in the early '90s. So the shop was opened up and started back then in the roots of '92, '93. Kind of went through the whole '90s with the explosion of snowboarding. Snowboarding grew astronomically, in those years. Every year after year, it was just exploded. It was kind of in the '90s. I think a lot of kids grew up in that era. It became kind of like their life and like a culture, and they were definitely affected by snowboarding and just in a positive way. Obviously, they were, and it kind of just Out of Bounds was there to provide snowboards and gear and boots and bindings and all that stuff. It was a place for them to come and talk about snowboarding with Scott and the owners, and it was kind of like one of the first core snowboard shops. Now, obviously, in the '90s, there were a lot of similar type of stores that popped up everywhere in all over the country, whether it's California or Colorado or Utah or New York and New York City, upstate New York, even a couple here in Jersey, and all over the place, down in Virginia Beach, Delaware, all that stuff, Philly area. But, the snowboarding grew exponentially in the '90s, and then, kind of hit like the 2000s. It continued to grow. It got the sport matured. It got into the Olympics, and then as it matured and stuff like that, it it kind of hit like a little plateau. I would say in the late 2000s, like starting like 2007, 2008, through like 2010, through 2011, there was kind of like a plateau where snowboarding kind of leveled off for a few years, but then it started growing again, and I think that's just a cycle of things to come. Young snowboarders in the '90s became parents, and then they started getting their kids later into it. So now you see snowboarding growing again in the last 5-6 seasons, and it's a good thing to see. And Out of Bounds has always been there through all of it. We've been in business 27 years now, as a snowboard specialty, skateboard specialty shop. And I think that says a lot, about our commitment and love and passion for the sport, or the hobby or the lifestyle. I started snowboarding in 1991, my junior year of high school. If I recall correctly, it was I had skied on and off, just like over the years, just like 2-3 times a year, and it was fun, but it was nothing that ever appealed or really talked to me in that way. And then so I think in the fall of '91, I kind of believe I saw like on ESPN there was a show called Snowboarder Mag, I believe, with GT, Greg Tomlinson, and I think they went to Chile, if I'm not mistaken, on that trip. If I recall the episode, I think it was like the Morrow team went to Chile and in the summer, and Todd Richards and Billy Anderson and that. And I remember just watching. That's kind of like the first time I really saw snowboarding like at high level, like they were throwing spins and, going big and throwing big airs, and Todd was like killing it. He was like spinning every which way, and I'm like, wow, that's like fun, like that's, I think, I think the moment I during that show and I finished watching that show, I kind of told myself, you know what, this is something I want to try, I want to do. And, I think that was like early, late, either early winter or late fall. I think it might have been like October or November. I think the mountains opened up early that year. So I actually went to Pelican and rented my first snowboard there. Took it up to Vernon Valley at the time, Vernon Valley Great Gorge, and kind of like learned how to snowboard there. And then that's all she wrote. So I started snowboarding in my junior year in 1991. I became the shop owner here at Out of Bounds in 2006, in the summer of 2006. So I've been here 13 years now. Before that, I actually had a previous snowboard shop. Between the years of 94 and 98, I had a snowboard and skate specialty shop down in Middletown, New Jersey, near Red Bank. And it was like one of the first snow and skate shops around too. I started it when I was young. It was like kind of something I wanted to do and give it a shot, and it was a really good experience. I learned obviously a lot, of everything, business and dealing with people and customers and, running a business and all the ins and outs and, so that was a really good experience. Obviously, those 4 years I met a lot of people, and then I kind of walked away from it in '98, and then kind of got the itch to get back into the industry in 2006, and then I ended up taking over the shop. It was originally owned by Scott and Jen, as I said before. Scott and Jen started the store in '92, but I believe in 2000, I think it was 99 actually, 99 or 2000, they sold the shop to Princeton Ski Shops, which was like a big, ski shop operation in the New York, New Jersey, tri-state area. They had 4 stores, I believe. So I took the shop over from Princeton, and I've been here ever since, and I've tried to continue the the passion and the soul of snowboarding through the shop, that Scott and Jen originally intended the shop to be. Not that Princeton did a bad job, but I don't think it was the same.
I think a lot of us could probably agree with that if you're selling skis and snowboard.
Yeah, exactly. I think, obviously online is the way people shop nowadays, so that is a big factor. For us, we for shops that are brick and mortar and are they depend on people walking through the doors instead of clicking on the internet. I think the most important thing, without a doubt, is a connection with your customer and just superior and above and beyond, customer service. If you give your customers, you respect your customers, and you're able to relate to them and communicate with them, whether it's product or, what works and why something works, whether it's, the jacket on the mountain or a glove, or why that binding or that boot will work better on the mountain than another one, or why that snowboard, will be better suited for their riding style. I think that goes a long way. I think, online shopping is quick and easy, but it's impersonal. It's you're clicking something. Most of the time we see customers buying stuff just because, for the sake of buying, whether it's price, it's a good price, or whatever the reason, they like a graphic on something. But a lot of times, throughout the winter, we see customers come in and they buy the wrong stuff. They buy the wrong product. They buy, I don't know. An example would be like Burton channel EST bindings, with a norm for a normal board or something like that, and they bring it in here for us to mount it, and they're going on a trip to Vermont the next day or that weekend, and we have to tell them the bad news. I'm like, I'm sorry, that it's not compatible, and so a lot of customers, consumers buy stuff online, but a lot of times it's the wrong product, or it's the wrong reason for buying it. So for us, it's to educate our customers, and I think that's important, to tell them why something works, and why they should choose a couple of these options over over the others. And I think that's what separates us. I think when the customer comes into our shop, they can definitely, we've been told they definitely can see and feel the difference, here at Out of Bounds, as opposed to, other places or online shopping. I think local shops, they definitely, in my opinion, are a vital part of the local snowboarding community, in the sense that they're kind of like the heartbeat, of the local snowboard scene. There's a lot of stores you can go and buy snowboard equipment and ski equipment nowadays, whatever, winter equipment, but you won't get the personalization and the like the people connection that local shops will give you. They have, local shops have a real good sense of what's going on in the snowboard culture and the snowboard community, and that goes a long way. You're not going to get that from a big corporate, big box store. You walk into a local shop, you can talk to the people, and the salespeople or the manager about conditions, about about how the park is, about if you're planning on taking a trip, it's they can give you insight on different resorts. They can definitely give you a personalized insight on snowboards or boots or binding or specific equipment that they have personal experience with. And I think that goes a long way. I think that, if you go to a big box store and just talk to some salesperson who's never touched or handled any of the products that they're selling there, it's not the same, So I think, I think local shops, and there's not that, unfortunately, in our time today, in today's society, local shops are dwindling. They are going by the wayside, unfortunately. But there are obviously a good handful of local shops that are basically, they drive the snowboard scene of their local community and hill, and I think that's important, because you just you can't replace that, and you can't get that online or on the internet. Yeah, so I think local kids they should definitely be educated and take the time to go to the local shop, their local shop, and obviously it's unfortunate that there's not great shops at every city. Like there's definitely places in all over the country that don't have a really good local shop, local scene, local snowboard shop that can answer the questions that they want or make them feel comfortable and accept it, or so there's like I said, going back to that question, there's certain really good snowboard shops still around the country, but they're not everywhere. So I think kids and customers can take the time to actually go into the shop and ask questions and just pick the brain of the sales staff. There's not it's very easy to differentiate, and tell if a guy knows what he's talking about, and if he knows what he's talking about, and it's very easy to see right through that. So I think, the genuine, legit, shops that really have a passion for snowboarding and will always be in it because of the love of the sport, you can tell, but just firsthand within the first 15, 20 seconds walking in. You should be able to get that sense and that feel for it. And I think kids and customers, can go, and support the local shops. And I know it's easy to say support local, but that doesn't mean big corporate box stores, if that's your local shop. Like if you walk into a Zoomies, that's not your local shop. That's like a mall, big box store. I think customers have to make that decision. They have to, think a little bit for themselves why to support certain stores, and kind of process it, and see that there's a value when they come into a snowboard shop, a really good shop that has has all the things that make a shop valuable and make a shop really, really extremely good, which is, that whole scene and the education and the knowledge and the experience that you get that, like I said, you won't get anywhere else. I feel like magazines and print was a huge part and influential aspect of snowboarding back in the 90s. Obviously, with social media today, I think it's less of an impact and an imprint. I think nowadays kids just get stuff. Consumers get stuff fed to them readily online. Instantly. So that's in that sense. Print wise, it's unfortunate. Magazines like Transworld Snowboarding are no longer around. Snowboard magazine's still around, but it's not the same, and print was like a huge avenue of reaching out to educate and talk to consumers back in the 90s, but it's changed obviously with today's society and social media. So I don't think print, unfortunately. Hopefully it'll still be around and make a comeback in certain spots, and hopefully kids today will pick up a magazine and actually look at it and read it. I hope print doesn't go away. But as far as a factor in today, it's not as strong of an avenue and impact as it used to be. So, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about this. At first, I kind of had a negative reaction to it, obviously. And I think that stems from, having experience at Vail Resorts the last few years and seeing how Vail likes to develop their resorts. There's a Vail formula, in my opinion, obviously, and they definitely like to cater and target a certain type of clientele and demographic. So at first, my reaction was a bit definitely on a negative side. In my opinion, I thought that I was thinking perhaps Boulder and Hunter and all the peak resorts would not be the same as as we have known it. But I think I'm now cautiously optimistic in the sense that I'm hoping that it'll be the same as it always was, meaning business as usual. As long as I think it's the people in charge of each one of those resorts, as long as they keep them there in the right place, I think everything will be fine. So in that sense, I think we just have to wait and see how Vail manages that and does the personnel, changeover and infrastructure for those the peak resorts that are being absorbed into Vail. I think it's definitely like, it can be a good thing. Obviously, Vail has a lot of, capital and resources that they can improve all these resorts, snowmaking, lifts, infrastructure, and lodges and all that stuff, parking. So from that end of it, definitely think it's a positive. I'm hoping that Vail sees like Big Boulder and Hunter for what they are, meaning, there's a certain, like culture especially at Boulder, and I hope that they see that and they don't try to change that, too much. So I'm going into the season like with the Vail, acquisitions, like I said, cautiously optimistic. No, I don't think so. I think, Vail does what they do. We do what we do. We've never, I don't definitely take that into a factor at all. I think if anything, it'll Vail taking the, people could possibly say that it might get more people into the sport, because they'll sell more passes and this and that, so maybe more people will be more inclined to participate and go to the mountains a little bit more, especially with the flexibility of all those passes. But it definitely doesn't affect us, as far as the way we do things here.
Do you think you're going to see an influx in Mountain Creek in the passes built? Because obviously you are a core snowboard shop, I'm a core snowboarder. The people that this is going to are going to be core snowboarders and stuff. Cool.
No, I don't think so. I think in the beginning, I think, Boulder has a really good scene. Pat Morgan does an amazing job there, at Big Boulder. And, I think Boulder specifically will continue doing what they do. And as long as Pat is there, everything will be fine at Boulder. I definitely truly believe that, as long as they let him, run things and see the vision of Boulder, I think everything should be good. I don't see anyone, jumping ship from Boulder and going over to Mountain Creek or anything and that sorts. I think like people, will make decisions based on like, what makes sense to them. If they're only going to ride locally and they want a place to go that's quick, they're going to buy a Mountain Creek pass. And if, Boulder's their spot, they're still going to go to Boulder. And, that's what it is. I think if anything, it's good for peak pass holders in the sense that if they upgrade to Vail resorts, they have more access to a lot of other mountains. No, I don't believe so. I think the culture is there, and it's I think what drives the culture is like the passion of the kids, and the passion of the riders, and I don't think Vail taking over a few of our local ski areas really changes it, drastically. Like I said, if anything, it definitely will give local riders who've been Big Boulder riders access to mountains out west, obviously, and that's a good thing. They'll be able to go out west and experience places and mountains that they've never experienced before, simply because of the access of the pass. But it doesn't change the community and the culture of local snowboarding. It might change, a little bit of the feel of your experience on the mountain, like, if they cater towards certain customers, and who knows how they'll implement their plans and what their plans are. But I think for them, if Vail is smart, I think they would keep Boulder what it is, and knowing that the community is really nice and tight in that area, and locally. So. Every season I get excited about the new year. So pretty much the answer would be everything. I'm excited about the new products and the new boards and new bindings and boots and outerwear and goggles, whatever that's coming in. I always get excited for the new season because of what the winter might lie ahead, what kind of snow we'll get, whether it's here on the East Coast or even out west. I'm looking forward to taking some good trips. I usually right around this time, as we get closer to September, I always get it pretty excited about the new season, and it's pretty much a combination of everything from, like I said, from the new gear arriving daily to, how the winter will shape up, to the weather, to, the trips that we'll all take. So. Not much rain. Rain in our area. That's always a downer, but that would be the only thing. I try not to be negative for whenever I take an outlook on the new season. The only thing that bugs me or bugs snowboarders is when the East Coast gets rain. We get some rain and warm weather, and during the winter time, it kind of puts a damper into the season. But other than that, I'm hoping we don't get that. We get good snowfall and a good winter. Good temperatures. Hopefully the forecasters are right. If they call for snow, hopefully it doesn't turn to rain. And that's kind of but other than that, no, there's not much that I try to. There's not much to look down upon in the new year. In the snowboard culture or in the industry? In the culture?
Yeah, I would say in the culture. Like, what trends have you been seeing that comes out that you really enjoy, and what things do you not enjoy?
You know what? I can't say there's anything that I've seen trending on the culture that's negative. When I do go to the local mountains and I see it, everyone's pretty stoked and everyone's pretty happy to get out of the mountain. I mean, it's where snowboarding is a good time, lifestyle and sport and culture, whatever you want to call it. And so there's really not a lot to be negative about. I haven't seen anything that's, there's no negativity that I've seen on the mountains or anything like that. And the culture is pretty, pretty strong and pretty tight knit as it is. Everyone's stoked when they're on the mountain. They're having a fun time. There's no vibing going on. I think there used to be perhaps years ago a little bit, but I think nowadays snowboarders are just snowboarders and they're just out there on the hill to have fun. So.
What about the industry? Do you think anything in the industry should be removed? 'Cause you seem like you kind of had something.
Industry-wise, being honest and on my perspective, you could all obviously say that, corporate business and corporate, entities and stuff like that, interests shouldn't have too much to do with snowboarding. Snowboarding started, for me and for many of us as a escape, and a thing to go and have fun, with your friends and sliding down the mountain. And so if anything could be said is corporate presence in snowboarding is to me it's always going to be weird or a little bit different to accept that. I understand that obviously it's business and obviously that will attract corporations and big box stores and whatever it is, brands, big corporate brands and stuff like that, getting a piece of the pie or getting into the industry, whether it's energy drinks or camera companies or whatever, right? But I think that being said, I think the industry, without the big corp, in the industry, I think I think that's what makes up the fabric of having smaller niche brands in snowboarding. And I think to have a big corporation brand or a big corporation presence, there's always the other side of that, which is the small core brand or niche brand that's doing their thing, opposite from the big corporate brand. So I think obviously it's almost like a necessity in some ways in the industry, but I think that's just part of the game and part of the business. So we've got some local team riders and some local riders that Ty Schnorbush is should keep an eye out on Ty. She's definitely she's got definitely some big tricks and it's progressing really well. Abby Ronka is definitely like taking big steps. Obviously LJ Enriquez is definitely someone to keep an eye out for. He's just killing it, obviously, and his style is just going to get better as he gets older, as he matures and gets a little bit stronger. He's 11 and he's going to be 12 this year, so but he's already been killing it for a few years now. So I would say that. I mean, other than that, other like on the global level, the Fava brothers are killing it. Pat and Joe and Johnny O'Connor is his leg is healing up from the surgery and the accident from a couple years ago, and he's just killing it right now. Like and there's so many. Snowboarding is just so good now. There's so many good riders that it's hard to just single any one or two out, but those are the ones I would definitely, I've been pretty impressed with. So. We've got, some cool things as far as some collab stuff this upcoming season for the shop. We've got some mittens, some good, gear and stuff like that we collab with, like as far as like hoodies and stuff like that. We're working on a couple bigger ones. I don't want to mention anything yet as far as like leak anything yet, but we've got a couple big collab projects coming up. With some of the brands, board brands and binding brands, boot brands, whatnot. So we've got some good trips for the shop, local trips up to Hunter and Wyndham's and maybe a Vermont trip in the works, and then we always run a big annual Tahoe trip for everyone that everyone's invited to come along, and that we do that at the end of towards the end of the season at the end of March. This year we took 32 different people out to Lake Tahoe, and that was quite a good time. So that's kind of like and then of course there's always other small things in the works. So yeah, so it's definitely a little bit of everything. Like obviously I tried to ride a lot of different boards and test different boards before I bring them in, but sometimes you can't do it all. So sometimes I have like, some friends of mine, ride them and give me their feedback. But I definitely, as far as picking out what brands to come in, there's definitely a way we go about that, a methodical approach, I guess. We definitely try to support brands we believe in. That's the most important part. And we try to pick brands that we not only we believe in, meaning we ride and use, but that have a really strong support and standing for snowboarding, like brands that actually support and are about snowboarding. You know what I mean? So brands such as Capita. Like if you look at that brand, Capita itself, and we're a pretty, big partner and dealer with Capita, and the reason why we support them so much is because we believe in their brand and believe in their boards and their technology. That's number one, obviously, and then but number two, they're a snowboard brand. At the end of it all, like if you look at their whole company, in Seattle, everyone there snowboards. From the top all the way to the bottom. They from Blue to Johan to their reps, their sales reps, and to they're the people who work in the warehouse, packing the bindings and the boards, and the coal headwear and whatever. If you call them, they were probably snowboarding this morning or yesterday somewhere. And I think it's easy to support brands that have a real passion and love for the sport, or passion and love for the lifestyle of snowboarding. And I think definitely Capita fits that bill. Union obviously as well. We also support other brands that we've ridden, and the brands definitely have good product. If we ride something, and if it performs, we're obviously interested in carrying it. So we'll carry stuff that we like and we believe in, brands that stand for something. Again, going back to that's important. United Shapes is another brand that I rode for the first time 5 years ago, and I was blown away how good they were, and they have a really good story, and it's easy to back their brand. So I think like we pick out brands that we believe in, that we that have a strong passion and love for for the sport of snowboarding, and we kind of go from there. It's once in a while we'll obviously also take in some brands that we just want to try out, that there's like an interest in, whether, so we don't make decisions based on economic budgets and economic reasoning. I don't want to ramble, but I think a lot of stores sometimes make those decisions. Brands that they carry, they make decisions based on what kind of discounts they're getting and their profit margins and their bottom line. Like if they get an extra 5 to 8 to 10% on a brand because they're willing to work with them, they want them in that shop. That shop might push that brand more, and it's not necessarily the right way, to go about it. We do not make decisions, brand decisions based on profit margins and so on, whatnot. We make our decisions based on what we truly believe in and what we truly want to back and ride ourselves. I think snowboard brands are very good nowadays. It wasn't like 15, 20 years ago where there was like, definitely a noticeable or significant difference between, this brand board and that brand board. I think snowboard technology is pretty even as across the board as it is now. I think obviously the new shapes is kind of like, different shapes is dictating the industry the last, 2, 3, 4 years now. It was, starting with the slush slasher, and, now it's, you see a lot of different shapes and stuff like that. And that's kind of like a trend where it's an interesting, way the snowboard industry has moved towards. Technology-wise, I think, most of the brands and most of the factories are making excellent boards now. If you look at a snowboard, it comes down to it. It's wood and fiberglass and epoxies and resins and glues, and maybe some carbon fiber here and there and whatnot. So, it's not rocket science by any means. I think, board companies have become, factories have become more efficient and they build really good boards now. I think snowboard brands have, the big rocker versus camber, like debate, has kind of like, shuffled itself out. And, you see a lot of boards now that ride really well. The best riding boards now, the technology-wise, are hybrid boards. Are most of the time they're camber dominant hybrid boards. And there's kind of a reason for that. And the industry has kind of shifted very much towards that the last 3-4 seasons as well. We've seen a lot of brands come out with similar boards, basically their versions of a specific board or two, whatnot. And that's cool to see because, when something works, why mess with it, So, it's, tech-wise and stuff like that, that's kind of like, what I see snowboarding. I mean, the shapes or, the new experimentations with all different shapes. Materials-wise, there's definitely some new materials being introduced last couple of years too. We'll see how that really, affects things. But I think at the end of it all, I think most brands do a pretty good job, with the product, the quality of the products that they're putting out. Yeah, I think ASIM boards definitely have advantages and positives about it. Asymmetrical side cuts are definitely something that is a positive. I mean, when you ride an asymmetrical board, if the board is a good board and it has good side cut and good geometry and all that stuff, it's going to turn and handle pretty well. And that edge to edge response, especially onto that hillside, is going to be pretty dramatic. So we're definitely big fans of ASIM boards, and we're fans of like different shapes and stuff like that. But I think obviously at the end of it all, we try to get our customer on the snowboard or the product that works best for them. It doesn't have to be because it's the latest trend. Yeah, I think if you look at the industry, one board that just automatically comes to mind is Capita's Defenders of Awesome. Is just it's exactly what its name implies. It's just awesome. It's it was. I don't want to say it was the first board that did it because the Black Snowboard at Death was one did it, and there were a couple other boards too. But it was kind of like the first board that brought camber dominant middle technology with just the right amount of rocker at the ends, and then putting it together in a very versatile shape. Ever since that board was released in 2011, it's been it's been a phenomenal snowboard in that 2011-2012 season. So that board is the DOA is pretty much has a legendary status now, a cult status. It's kind of like it's set the bar pretty high. So that board has always been a really good top seller of ours in the shop for the last 7 years. Other boards that have sold real well. The Ride War Pigs, last few years, the Slush Slashers from Spring Break have been really good. For us, the United Shapes boards have been very strong simply because I ride one personally as well, and so those boards have been really good. Never Summers are always like a good strong sellers, but model specific, I would definitely say the DOA is there, the Slush Slasher, the Spring Break ASIM Twin is definitely another board that has gotten a lot of loved the last few seasons. The United Shapes boards, the Explorer and the Cadet, and then the Pig series from Ride, the War Pig, last 3-4 seasons, and then now the Twin Pig last year, and then there's a Super Pig for this year. Those have been pretty strong. And, Capita's Black Snowboard of Death, and also the Capita Mercury have been very, very strong. I think that we are a snowboard shop. I think obviously that's cliche or whatever, but really if you look at our store and our shop, we specialize and focus on snowboarding. We don't sell anything else. We don't do any we don't sell skis, or we don't sell patio equipment or furniture or hot tubs, and that's not a knock on other stores, but the focus here at our store is always going to be snowboarding. Everyone here at the shop, from myself to our employees, all snowboard. They all get out on the hill, and I think that's what separates us. You can feel it when you come into our shop. Our customers tell us that they can, most of the time they can tell right away. And you can really sense our dedication and our love for snowboarding itself here at the shop. We're always have always been about snowboarding, and doing things for snowboarding, and to support snowboarding, and I think it always will be that way here. Hardest part of being about a shop owner, I would say, it's trying to being a shop owner. Okay, hardest part would probably be the long hours, obviously, that I put in, during the winter. Like there's days I come here and I do, 12, 13-hour days for like the 7 days straight. I don't get a day off in the wintertime. I'm here every day, unless I'm away on a trip or away on a business trip like SIA in Denver or something like that. I'm here every day. So, I don't get a day off. So that's, being a shop owner, a small business owner, you kind of have to, take care of everything in many ways, obviously. And I'm pretty sure, business owners, know what I'm talking about. So I think, the hard part is putting in the time and the grind daily. Sometimes there's days like you wake up and you're like, you're mentally, and it's not even physical. A lot of times it's more mentally. You might be bogged down. You might be, mentally you might not be all like, you're just mentally tired. You're not all there, but you fight through it, and I think that it makes it easier when you're doing something you love, and for me personally, there's nothing better than the job that I have, and so even though it's hard on a mentally demanding level throughout the winter, being here every day and stuff like that, as a business owner, you worry about everything, and people say that, my wife especially, she says I have anxiety for 5-6 months of the year during the winter. But I think, like I said, it makes it much easier when it's something you love, and when every day I walk in here, I'm in an environment that I love, with stuff that I love and to be around and to be part of, and so I can't really complain too much. there's a lot of good product, obviously, just top five. I would recommend definitely, Capita has a Super DOA coming out this year, the Super Defenders of Awesome. That's an amazing board that I got a chance to ride and test out since January of this year. I definitely, the Super DOA and even the DOA, I would say the simulator from Capita is amazing. The new Jessica Kimura Equalizer for women is an amazing board. I would recommend. The ride Super Pig is a pretty fun ride. I definitely recommend that. And then United Shapes boards, the Explorer and the Cadet are just bonkers. They're lights out. They really do anything and everything, and they're just so versatile. So the United Shapes boards, I highly recommend. We always recommend, a pair of Unions. The new Force is highly recommended. They've added some new changes, some improvements to it. It's got canting and it's pretty awesome. So the new Force, the STR from Union is awesome. And the Strata, obviously, taking from last year's momentum, the Strata is just a phenomenal binding. So it's highly recommended. It's comfortable. It's very damp. It's very responsive, and it's durable. It's stronger than anything out there. So those and for women, obviously the women's Legacy, which is the women's Strata, and then the Trilogy is highly recommended. And then couple of things I have pieces that's more than five, but the 32 TM2 boot is highly recommended. There's a new double BOA version of that boot, so that's going to be pretty exciting. I know there's BOA fans out there that have complained that they need to make a BOA version of the TM2, and they finally have done that. So there's a dual BOA version of that. So I'm sure that'll make some customers happy, but there will always carry the majority of that boot in regular straight lace, obviously here. And then Vans has a couple pretty amazing boots. The High Standard Pro and the Infuse, are two that are excellent. So. Top 5 best boards I've ridden entire life. Now, does this have to be in order or just any 5?
No, just any 5.
Just any 5. All right. So, top 5 best boards I've ridden in my entire life. No particular order. I will say Capita Black Snowboard of Death. Capita Defenders of Awesome. The United Shapes Explorer series. I ride the Voyager currently, the 53. My old Burton Custom Limited from 1997, I would say. There's always a place in my heart for the old school 1995-96 Burton Balance. This one's hard. There's a lot of good fun boards out there. But I would say, I would say that ride Super Pig is pretty fun. I definitely will admit, I've been riding that a good amount of quite a bit lately too, and that's a very, very fun board. So I would say, if you're telling me to name 5, I would say that's pretty good to close to the 5. Black Snowboard of Death Capita, Defenders of Awesome Capita, the United Shapes Explorer, and then old school custom whatever balances, but the ride Super Pig is a pretty fun ride. So I would say those. Shout outs, I'll definitely have to. First of all, I'll definitely have to give a shout out to all our our customers, our loyal customers and supporters here at the shop. Without them, we wouldn't be here. So all our customers, the Out of Bounds loyal customers that come here year after year. I have to give a shout out to my mom, just simply because without her I wouldn't be here. But not only that, she does a lot in the sense that I have 3 kids and she helps out a lot with the family, and watching the kids and stuff. What else? Yeah, our staff, our staff. I'm gonna give a shout out to Chris and Andrew and everyone else, who supports and comes in, for long hours throughout the winter. My wife, without a doubt, give a shout out to her. Without her, she's the one who keeps me in line, and without her, this wouldn't be possible. And I think, lastly, I would have to say the biggest shout out, definitely goes then to just the snowboarding itself. Thank you, snowboarding, for for everything that the memories and the people and the friends I've met through snowboarding and the places I've been and traveled. And I think the snowboarding itself has been so influential in my life and brought me so much. So I definitely have to say thank you, snowboarding. It's been a wonderful ride, and can't many more years looking forward to what it may bring for snowboarding itself.